Okay, to start this lesson, we're going to make sure you understand what an improper fraction is. Improper fraction means that the numerator is larger than the denominator. Numerator, which is the top number, is larger than the denominator. That is called improper, meaning it is not proper. A proper fraction is simply where you have the numerator is smaller than the denominator. Okay? Those are proper. Improper, where the numerator is larger than the denominator. Okay. So what do we do with these improper fractions? Well, when you have an improper fraction, you need to change it to a mixed number. A mixed number is simply an integer plus a fraction. So this is a mixed number. We 3.5. There is an integer plus a fraction. It can be negative. Oh, we don't want to make more of that. We want to erase it. Negative 17 2/3. So a mixed number is an integer, positive or negative, plus a fraction. And now I'm going to show you how you go from an improper fraction to a mixed number and vice versa. That means is how you can go then from an improper fraction, a mixed number, back to an improper fraction. All right, so we are all good on our terminology. All right, let's begin. So here we have an improper fraction. And remember, this fraction bar really means to divide by. All right, so to change this into a mixed number, I ask myself, how many times can 4 go into 10? How many sets of 4 are there in 10? Well, there are 2, because 2 times 4 is 8. I can't do 3, because 3 times 4 is 12, and that's too much. So I can take 2 4s, and what do I have left over? 4 times 2 is 8, so what's left over is going to be my numerator, and the neat thing is the denominator always stays the same. And I'm left with 2 2/4. Now we talked about simplest form. Now this answer is not in simplest form. The reason why is because there is a number that is divisible here. I can divide both the numerator and the denominator by 2 and change this to simplest form. So whatever you do to the numerator, you gotta do to the denominator or they get really upset. The integer stays the same, and it is the fraction that it doesn't change. It's still the same fraction. It's just put in simplest form. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So the final answer, 10/4, is equal to 2.5 in simplest form. Let's try another one. Let's say we have 15/9. So I say to myself, how many times does 9 go into 15? 9 can go into 15 one whole time. And what's left over? Well, 9 plus 6 is 15, so 6 is left over, and the denominator stays the same. So 15/9 is equal to 1 6/9. But then I look at that and I say, is this in simplest form? And it is not, because 3 is a factor common to both of those. And both of the 6 and 9, the numerator and the denominator, can be divisible by 3. So I divide the numerator by 3, and I have to divide the denominator by 3. So 1 6/9 is equal to 1 2/3. And that is the final answer in simplest form. All right? Here's another one. Let's take one from your book. How about 19/3? 19/3. Go ahead and pause and change 19/3 into a mixed number in simplest form. Did you say to yourself, self, how many times does 3 go into 19? It can go in 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. What's left over? 1. And the denominator stays the same. Hey, look at that. It's already in simplest form. How nice for us. So 19/3 is equal to 6 1/3. How'd you do? Here's one more. Go ahead and pause and try this one. 38/5. Change that to a mixed numeral in simplest form. There's the answer. Hope you got it right. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take this mixed number and we're going to show you how you turn it back into an improper fraction. And the way you do it is something that I like to call a swirly. I call it a swirly because when you think of swirl, swirl is kind of like this, right? A swirly. And that's sort of the motion you do with these mixed numbers. All right, let's take a mixed number of 4 1/2. And the way you give it a swirly is you're going to do math in this direction. You're going to swirl it clockwise. So you take the denominator and you multiply it by the integer. 2 times 4. 2 times 4. Then you're going to take that answer and you're going to add the numerator to it. 2 times 4 plus 1. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1. We get 9. And the nice thing about the swirly, very similar to changing things to a mixed number, is that the denominator stays the same. So 4 1/2 is equal to 9 halves. And the great part is you can always check your work, because 2 goes into 9 how many times? 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And what's left over? 1. And the denominator stays the same. Okay? So when you have a mixed number, just give it a swirly and you can change it to an improper fraction. All right, here we have an improper fraction, 3 3/4. I'm going to give it a swirly, which means I'm going to multiply the denominator by the integer, and then I'm going to add the numerator. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 3 is 15. So the numerator is 15, and the denominator stays the same. You can check and see if you did it right. How many times does 4 go into 15? Well, 4 times 4 is 16, so that's too much. 4 times 3 is 12, so it goes in 3 whole times, and what's left over? 12, 13, 14, 15, 3, and the denominator stays the same. All right, I'm going to give you one to do yourself. We have 2 7/16. Ah, look at that. That looks crazy. Can I use a calculator? Absolutely. Go get your calculator and give this baby a swirly and tell me what the improper fraction is. Go ahead and pause and do that now. You should have come up with 39/16. How'd you do? Good? Awesome. Let's do one more in which you are going to have to put the answer in simplest form, so be careful. Okay, here is the improper fraction 8/6. Change that to a mixed numeral in simplest form. Pause now and do that. All right, did you say to yourself, self, how many times does 6 go into 8? It goes in 1 time. And what's left over? 2. And the denominator stays the same, but we can write that in simplest form, and we end up with 1 and 1/3. Now if I change that, if I take 1 and 1/3 and I give that the old swirly, 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1, I get 4/3. You might say, wait, Mrs. Aquino, 4/3, I started with 8/6. Well, those are equivalent fractions, because if I multiply the numerator by 2 and the denominator by 2, what do I get? 8/6. So you are getting the correct answer. This answer is just in simplest form. Okay, because 4/3 is equal to 8/6, equivalent fractions. All right, so we've talked about proper fractions. We've talked about improper fractions. And we showed how we go from an improper fraction to a mixed number. You might see a different word instead of number. You might see the word numeral, but it just means number. All right, if you feel confident, then you are ready to go for tomorrow's lesson. If you want, you can go back and watch the video again and try the exercises. See you in class tomorrow. Bye.